This meeting is being recorded, but the recording does not constitute the official record of this meeting. Time for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any revisions?
No revisions to the agenda.
Okay. No, we're going to start with some public comment today.
Right.
Yep.
That's
We have Israel here.
Yeah.
You may.
So they reached out to present to the trustees items right now, kind of ballot of education with a 10-minute time limit.
Exactly. Thank
Thank
you, Mr. Chair,
Thank
for
you.
letting us hear today. I'm going to pinch hit for my other two compadres. We usually do this with three of us, but I want to take us through all three. So we have a vote coming up in May, a process with which you guys are more acquainted than most, for sure. And we're looking to fund two different projects as well as renew the resort tax. So I'll start with resort tax. Resort tax itself, as you guys well know, funds, you can't swing anything in this community without hitting something that was funded with resort tax. It is a substantial resource for everything that we do as a community. So state law in Montana with most taxes requires a sunset, meaning they have to be renewed by the voters after a certain period of time. So resort tax has been renewed a couple times. It renews again in 7 years. The district is looking to renew early and do that renewal now because that also resets the bond clock and it increases the amount that they can bond safely. Think with this group, I don't have to explain 20 minutes what that means. And so they're looking to renew early. That's critical for everything we do in the community. Whether you agree with either of these two other proposals or not, I strongly encourage you, please renew the resort tax. That would be a catastrophe I can't even imagine if we were not to do that. If that vote were to fail for some reason, they would get another bite at that apple in a couple of years. It's never failed on renewal. I think it's pretty obvious the benefits it has to the community, so it's super important that we look for that. So, slide please. Resort tax has taken a look at these couple of proposals under the umbrella of Livable Big Sky. Resort tax, as you may have seen in the past couple of years, started gathering from everybody a capital improvement plan. What is everybody looking to do to try to, whether it's resort tax funded or not, but start to get an arm around what is the big things the whole community is doing. And they identified two projects as being fast-tracked for resort tax funding. They're large enough scale that they need to be funded via a resort tax bond, which takes a community vote, which brings me here today. But the whole underlying principle is to create a livable big sky, to use resort tax as bonding ability, bonding capacity to undertake larger scale projects, to do things that are going to affect real change within the community over a long period of time. That term can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but affordable housing, accessible public spaces, health and well-being, these are kind of the big categories that resort tax is looking to address. Slide, please. So with that, we've got the resort tax renewal itself, and then two projects within that, the Cold Smoke Housing Bond, and then the Community Park Bond. I should have introduced myself at the beginning. I'm David O'Connor. I'm the Executive Director of the Big Sky Community Housing Trust, but I'm here to talk about all three of these projects as well. Slide, please. There we go. Okay, I'm going to slide, please. In the interest of time, kind of move through that a little bit more quickly. This is a really important conversation because the word bond, typically when you see it on a ballot, means my property taxes are going up. Often means levy, same sort of thing. However, a resort tax bond is paid entirely with resort tax collections. Those resort tax collections will be collected no matter what the outcome of the vote is. This is not an increase in resort tax. This is allowing the resort tax board to undertake debt, basically. But it is not a property tax bond. That is one of the biggest points that we're really trying to get across to people, because most people now hear bond and think property taxes, and that's a different proposition. So the financial portion of this, what taxes are collected, doesn't change in the slightest. This will not cost residents any more money than they're already paying for goods and services that are already subject to resort tax, but this doesn't increase that. Okay, slide please. So how much are they talking? So for Cold Smoke, it's two separate expenditures, 15 million for the infrastructure, 45 million for the acquisition of about 100 acres. So I'll go into a little bit more detail about what that is. The community park bond is a little bit smaller scale. This refers to the existing community park that's in the Meadow Village over softball fields, the community park that was sort of there first. They're looking for up to $6.8 million to complete a park expansion project that they're about halfway through, and they've substantially funded with private dollars already, or private donations. Slide, please. So going into housing, this is the Cold Smoke Project. This map at first, just to get you an orientation. This is the Big Sky Spur Road or Montana 64. That's the Ace Hardware Store. These are the sewer lagoons. These are the Riverview apartments that are just about complete. And so just to get you by orientation, the project includes 264 apartments across 8 buildings on the remainder of that bench that's up here. These will be on the same level as these apartments. And then you go over that bluff and cross the stream, and there's this whole area in here that we're looking to construct 125 single-family homes, a combination of attached and detached duplex. Both projects are going to be condominiumized. We'll be able to sell and rent sort of as the market will be ready to absorb. Certainly our vision includes primarily rental up here, primarily homeownership down there, across a range of affordability. Everything we've done so far is hit kind of either 80% or 100% or 140% area median income. This is the first project we've done that'll undertake a range because the scale is big enough to allow that. For the timeline, we, assuming that we're able to take down the land with this vote, we'll close on that around the fall. That's when the entitlements will be finished. It'll be ready to be purchased. We hope to start on infrastructure construction immediately and then break ground on vertical right after that allows. We'd like to be in the first homes by the end of 2028 and be complete by 2032. Slide, please. So how we got here, I just want to give the impression that there's a punch list of land that is applicable for a project like this that we're looking at. And we've been, since the Housing Trust was formed in 2020, we have been keeping tabs on every land opportunity we can find and trying to check off these 12 or 14 boxes. It has to be able to be annexed to the water and sewer district. We're looking to use housing-specific water that the voters set aside in 2020 specifically for this purpose. So we need to be adjacent to the district to be able to be annexed. It needs to be completely entitled and subdivision review done and all that. It needs to be basically shovel ready for us to build using public dollars to acquire this land. We don't really have a risk tolerance that we can use that the land might not be approved or the project might not be approved at the county level. So in order for us to close on that, all that has to be done first. The housing will be available to any full-time member of Big Sky's workforce. There is no employer-specific, this is reserved for that employer or this is reserved for that. There may be a world down the road where maybe an employer buys a group of apartments or a group of buildings that would change that, but anything that, to start, that's going to be open to everybody entirely. And then the Housing Trust will retain the ownership of that land underneath the buildings, and then we'll ground lease that land to the buildings in perpetuity, and that gives us the greatest degree of control, not only over what goes there, but also the ongoing stewardship to make sure that the rules that we put in place there are followed year after year after year into perpetuity. There is no time limit or period of affordability that expires after a certain amount of time for this project. The rules that we put in place will stand as long as the buildings do. Thank you. Why are we doing this? What problems are we trying to solve? Again, people that I probably don't need to convince too much of that. Really looking since just before COVID, both condo and home prices have at least doubled over what was already a pretty unattainable price point. What was reasonably unattainable for most of our workforce is now completely out of reach for all of it because of what property prices have done. Our workforce is growing, our wages are growing. Nobody's wage growth is going to keep up with the kind of property growth that we've seen. So we were already coming from a pretty untenable position, and now today, between 80 and 90% of our workforce can't afford to participate in the housing market, and that is way upside down. That's what we're looking to fix. These are the numbers we're going off of. We didn't make these up. We do a housing needs assessment that takes into account dozens of data points, everything from job creation, Department of Labor statistics, census data, locally surveys, all that stuff goes into telling us what type of housing do we need, rental or ownership, and at what household incomes must they be affordable. And so operating off of that playbook, that's where these numbers come from. That study, most recent version, it was the end of 23, says we're 1,300 homes deficient to even house the workforce that desires to live here. Of that 1,350, 1,100 has to be priced below the market. So essentially all of it. What this project will hope to whack out is about 389, almost 400 of that. So we're not done if we pull this off. there's still quite a bit to go. This does account for things like the one and only, the Montage, things that are just getting open now. Does not account for like new town center hotels and stuff that's being talked about but isn't really on paper anymore yet. Okay, slide please. All right, went through the housing stuff. That is a record for me, if you know me at all. Brevity is not my strong point. So the community park bond, I beg your indulgence for a second, especially if you happen to be on the BSCO board. I'm not, and I'm pinch hitting for Whitney, couldn't make it down, but I've heard his pitch enough times. So again, this refers to the community park that's already in existence. So does anybody not understand where exactly this is? This was the first park that we built. It is very well used, very well loved by individuals, teams, organized sports, and so on, and it's time for a little TLC. Slide, please. So what do you mean we've outgrown the park? Well, here's some of the statistics that the park sees. Almost 600 just league and team sponsored by BSCO. That doesn't count any of the school stuff, any of the intramural pickup stuff, any of that stuff. That's almost 600 people per week when it's going. That's 10,000 vehicles per month, as Whitney pointed out this morning. That's 2 days of the spur road. Still, that's a pretty big number, and you can kind of see through all of these numbers on here. This is heavy use, for sure. This is a park that we all know and love and use considerably, and it needs some work. Slide, please. Here's what's remaining to do, and I want to stress this is about halfway through a project that BSCO has done significant fundraising for and deployed that funding. This is a halfway through project, so they're not seeking the entire thing to be funded with resort tax, nor is housing, but to sort of pick up in the middle where that fundraising is left off. So some of the things that they're looking at, Camp Big Sky, again, as this audience very well knows, is a huge success. My kids certainly went through it and loved it. Could use a little bit more of a permanent home and some sprucing up of that. Basketball court, racket court has had a lot of input into that conversation, is my understanding. New bathrooms, of course, you can kind of see down there. None of this is particularly surprising. This is what you kind of think the park would need, but it needs a lot of it at the same time, and there's a lot of economy of scale to doing this work together. Slide, please. Also expanded park programming, not only in the things they're able to offer, and again, this does this really well, but the duration of the season that you're able to offer it. We have sports. Baseball started, right? They're practicing in the gym because they can't practice outside anymore. Those types of things, to be able to incorporate more modern technology in not only the surface of the fields, but the underlayment, their ability to shed water, their ability to remove snow, all of those things are in our climate, in our zone, our best shot to be able to expand sporting seasons to be competitive with the other schools that are playing on grass right now. Slide, please. So what happens if these don't pass, right? So for resort tax, and again, as these votes generally look, there's either going to be a for or an against, right, for this vote. So a for vote on the resort taxes, it takes us through 2065 with reliable funding for all of our districts and nonprofits. This isn't only nonprofits, this is public safety. Our fire department, our sheriff's department, water and sewer are all significantly funded with resort tax. And then the extended term on the bond, instead of being able to take a 7-year bond, when you take a 30-year bond, it opens up the horizon quite a bit of what projects could be undertaken that are going to outstrip annual collections. A no vote means nothing happens at all. BSCO, Music in the Mountains, housing, fire, like name it, and it all goes away. There is no funding for any of those things. And really threatens livability and year-round sustainability. At that point, we're not talking about amenities, we're talking about basic necessities of life. It would be disastrous to not pass resort tax. On the Cold Smoke Housing Bond, a yes vote means that we proceed with this neighborhood and start whacking away at the housing need that we're also acutely aware of. And it lets us address that need scientifically in a way that matches the work that we've done and the research we've done about what exactly do we need and at what levels. It lets us do this in a much more controlled way, where if we depended on the market to build it, we know from experience, the market is not going to build housing that our workforce can afford to buy. We've tried that. Conditions not going to allow that today. But then also that if the market builds housing, They're not at all going off of the needs assessments that we're looking. They're building what's marketable, and that's not necessarily what the community needs to remain sustainable. A no vote means we don't do that. Plan B for housing, for if you say, yeah, I like that idea behind Cold Smoke, I like 400 homes, but I don't want to buy that land. Go come back with something else. My successor will be back in 5 or 8 years with something that will cost undoubtedly twice as much, but that will materially try to address the same sort of need. So delays our ability to address this problem, but it also makes it tremendously more expensive. There's a lot of question around the community. Well, what was this land worth in 2016? I think it was worth less than half what we're hoping to pay for it now. Good Lord, I wish we had bought it in 2016, but we didn't. So it's just like everything else. That's the price that it is today, and that's not going down. For the community housing bond, we're able to modernize a community park. If you were around when that park was built, it was BSOA put that together. It was a big lift to put it together at the time. It was not built by park builders. It was built by road builders. The surface under that field is road bed. That's why when you play soccer after a rainstorm, you're standing in puddles. It doesn't drain. So not only does the surface need to be redone, but the park needs to be re-engineered and redesigned so that those surfaces can be playable. This would allow for that, and then would also allow for BSCO, other funds to be set aside for reserves and do things more like paint parking and upgraded bathrooms as time goes by. The risks of that is we're swiftly on the road to a park that is fairly unsafe to play on. There will be liability issues for any sponsoring organization putting kids on that field. That'll be a real safety issue that comes up. And then, much like the others, just the livability and year-round sustainability of this community. And I would leave you with, this is not about bartenders and baristas, right, as far as the housing is concerned. In my mind, they're the happy byproduct that gets to get filled in. We are a community that runs off of groups just like this. Volunteer boards with special districts and nonprofit organizations that make everything tick. And those organizations need human beings to make them run. And those human beings need a place to live. And if we're all commuting from communities outside of here, I would make the case that I think the result of all of that effort will look a little different. We all have investment in this community because we live here. And I think it's a reasonable expectation that our future leaders be able to live here as well. And if we can create an environment where that's true and that happens, and we can keep all of these other organizations operating, we'll have plenty of bartenders and baristas. We'll be able to have lunch on Tuesday. Any of those things will happen if we take care of the community and leadership piece first. So how'd I do time-wise?
Pretty good. Not bad. There was a lot to cover. But it looks great, and I mean, I'm fingers crossed as well, so I think it sounds wonderful and love to see it go through, so.
Thank you for your time today.
Yeah.
Any questions, you know where to find me and look me up. And I'm here every day, one, and others.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Thank you all
very much. Thanks for filling in for me. Of course. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, move on to approval of minutes.
See if there's any other.
Any other public comment to be heard now?
Can I make a quick public comment?
Yeah.
I had you on the
You're on the
You have me
agenda,
on the agenda.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah, you're official.
Amazing. Perfect.
Okay, great.
Wow.
All right, move on to the approval of minutes, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February 11th and February 25th.
I second the motion.
Any changes, questions? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Accommodations and recognitions.
Not this.
Okay, let's move into your superintendent report, please.
I sent this out. So there's a handful of things on here. Enrollment, we're down one, right? This, from here on, I'll report also on future enrollment. And we're gonna take a really close look at out-of-district students as we start to kind of move forward and looking at class sizes. So I'll be able to tease that data out for us over the course of the next month. We probably wanna make that decision in May about non-district students and what levels. So keep an eye open for that. The election timeline, I mean, in addition to what David said, so I did present last week an educational session about our own ballot language and our own levy in conjunction with them. They've also asked me to join them on April 1st, which I will do. And then school-specific, I've lined out the dates between now and election where I'll present in the WAMPAC and then do one other with them on the 1st, and that'll be broadcast by Outlaw. And then the ballots come out the 18th and they're due back the 6th. I'll send this out again and remind you guys if anybody wants to join on any of those evenings. Quick let's get balance and bruise. And it's that same presentation that he just gave. Legislatively, they're on a break this week, but House Bill, so the first two, House Bill and House Bill 252, have gone through everything. They're gonna start hitting the House floor next week. The House Bill 15 will give us the 3% inflationary raise. That looks like it's gonna go through. And with the 3% inflationary raise, right, that'll be enough for us to cover the steps and lanes in our current matrix. There's high confidence around that this is gonna pass. House Bill 252, we talked extensively about a week ago around the levy. There's a lot hinging on this, but I do expect it's gonna be on the governor's desk before we break for spring break. This would mean a significant increase in our general fund dollars, not just for housing, but for other areas too. And this is really where we're gonna focus our negotiations with the association to meet that criteria so we can access and open the gate to those dollars. And it would really give us an opportunity to have a really successful negotiations and come out on the other side with a lot of happy people, I think. I have also high confidence that this is gonna go through. Senate Bill 260 is the bill that we talked about, removing the school district boundaries. It looks like this is kind of gonna get amended and possibly even split into two and not encompass all special districts, but possibly the school district and the hospital district as two separate bills. And we'll see how that moves forward. It's still probably 50-50 or slightly better than 50-50 if it gets split. And if it does get split, then there are some means in there for the school district to get more money directly into their general fund. And then I don't know how I missed putting it on here. Today we had a hearing in front of the county commission for our building for lease or rent. Two good things came out of that. One, they approved it, so the building for lease or rent permit is a go, and there wasn't any opposition. No public comment in opposition of our project, so we're carrying on. Nobody, and it's, and it's a proper, like, they alert everybody, they send them a mailer, this is gonna be heard at this time. So all of our immediate neighbors were made aware of the hearing today, and nobody showed up.
We're a much more likable group now, it sounds like.
We'll see. We'll see the next one.
No, I'm sure
They will.
I'm sure they read everything. Great, awesome, thanks Dustin. Marlo, middle high school.
Great, so we are in the third trimester, which we just started this week, our third trimester specials for the middle school, so they switched over. And so we're kind of in the final push for the year. We had a fantastic 9th grade science fair last week. Some of you were there. Congratulations, Dr. Isley and all the 9th grade students. Very professional work that they produced. And then upcoming, we have the ACT March 25th. And just as a reminder, that's the one test high school students take to meet our kind of state objectives for the teaching and learning in the high school. That's really the only one they have in all of high school. So we're wishing them well, and they have one more final prep day on the 18th. And then we had a successful Academic World Quest trip to Missoula last week with Dr. Brooke. And you want to say how well they did? It was like top 10?
Top 15.
Top 15.
Yeah, one of our teams. Yeah, but there's over 100 teams, 400 high school students from Montana. And it's an amazing conference about different world affairs. And yeah, and then at the end they have a competition. And our teams did really well, and we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Great
So
experience.
that's something new that Dr. Brooks started last year with the kids, and they really love it. So it's been a great experience. And in our student life, Dr. Brooke is on the stage again tomorrow with the 612 Talent Show at 2 p.m. So that's always a highlight. I've heard the kids jamming out in the warm pack for the last 2 days. So we're excited for that. Then we'll have our blood drive by the Student Council on March 27th. We have our FOBSI Awards for their senior scholarships coming on March 31st. And then right before spring break, we send off our 8th graders for their UI trip. We have our Grease production, and that's kind of what we're doing until we leave for break.
That's
So
all?
it should be exciting.
Yeah.
Lots to do. And we're teaching and learning and doing
At the same time.
That's the focus.
Well, just having to say we're getting close to the end of the year, it seems like we're saying we're just getting started with everything. It just
I know, it's crazy. Yeah.
flies by way too fast. So, any questions? Great. Thank you, Dr. Mitchum. Ms. Shirley?
Yes. Well, let's see, since the last time we met, we made it to and survived the 100th day of school. Also celebrated Valentine's Day on the same time, so we sugared the kids up and sent them home. The next day, we had a PIR day, which was really productive for our staff. They explored various curricular options that we're looking at for the future. Our kiddos are working on whole school research project and writing nonfiction stories. We had an author come visit. She's there's a Montana Humanities Project. Precious McKenzie, geez, I can't talk. She shared her process for nonfiction writing with the kiddos, so that was fun. Nordic skiing has started, so our kids are still getting out. First grade and kindergarten went today.
I see the chaos of times,
Yes, the
skis
bus.
and everything.
Yeah,
like,
it's a
wow.
lot.
Yeah.
And we finish next week, I think 4K goes one day, and then we're wrapping up the ski season. So that's great.
Just in time.
Yeah. Yesterday, Mrs. Jenks organized Read Across America Day, which was really great. It was actually led by the 9th graders. They did all of the teaching with the kids and reading of stories, and the teachers got to be facilitators and just walk their groups around. So that was a really fun day. It's a tradition we've had for a long time since Kathy House was here, and I think the kids were all excited, and we sugared them up again at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Taking Sue's juice and sent them home.
Well, it's great to keep that going.
Yeah. Today we had Bridger Care for 4th grade, which is always a fun and interesting day, and then next week 5th grade gets that. And we are full focus on Pie Auction, which is March 21st at 6th. If you haven't bought your tickets yet, Holly's right there, she can hook you up. But kids are selling raffle tickets, they do a great job. They raised, I think, almost $50,000 last year by selling those raffle tickets. Teachers are donating fun experiences to bid on, so it's gonna be a really fun event in the STEAM building. All tenured and non-tenured staff evaluations are done for the year. And if you didn't know all that stuff that you're doing, you have 16 school days until spring break. So good luck.
Easy peasy.
Yeah. Oh, and the last piece is we're working on building the list of families who are interested in the 4K program for next year and rounding up kiddos for kindergarten that aren't already in the building. So
Great.
thinking forward already.
You guys are busy.
Yeah, you
Thank you, everyone. Stay diligent. DP?
Yeah, I got Tim's report. So just trucking towards exams, trucking towards the end of the year, everybody's trucking towards finishing out their curricular goals. And then the big thing is meetings with 10th grade families are coming up over the next couple of weeks to provide so parents and kids can start to decide their path forward.
Great. Good. Mr. Hannes from the back of the room.
Yes, thank you. Porky stole my spot. So to wrap up winter sports, our congratulations to our basketball teams. Our boys had a great season, beat some teams they haven't beat before. Made it all the way to the 3rd place game at divisionals and just came up a little short, but finished 4th in the district. And our girls picked up their first win of the district tournament in amazing fashion and made it really interesting against Manhattan for that last game of their season, and lost to them by 7, but that was a team that went on and won a couple games of divisionals. So they were playing their best basketball at the end of the season for sure.
Great.
Spring sports are now in full swing, just like that, and we're looking pretty good. Right now we got 4 for boys golf, 6 to 7 for girls golf. We still have a couple kids that are on the fence. We're trying to get on board with that program. Libby, 6 for tennis, 7?
7 now.
7 for tennis. 19 for baseball, and right around between 13 and 15 for track, again, depending on a couple kids that are still kind of on the bubble there. But the weather's been cooperative, and Mr. Pemberton's done a great job with the field and having it now open and melted off for those teams to utilize, at least for the time being. So hopefully that snow melt continues and we'll be able to host a track meet or 2 before the end of the year. As soon as the state tournament is complete, the state basketball tournaments up in Missoula, I'll be able to share any all-conference or all-state athletes that we got out of the winter. So unless anybody has any questions, that is my report.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yep, I'm gonna go to golf practice.
Business manager.
So obviously, I'm with Dustin right now, we're watching legislature closely with some hope that we get some funding. Other than that, I think in the board packet, it shows we're sitting about $1.2 million worth of cash left for the year. We have $2+ million in salaries, debt or payments to make. So we will hit $1 million plus deficit as targeted. But no more than that. There's nothing out of the ordinary, nothing excessive. It's on target with what we budgeted, and we'll probably be there again next year. So that's kind of it. For my only other thing is, David talked about it, the resort tax is great, but the $300,000 levy that the school's asking for is a big deal. Allows with housing initially, with infrastructure, and going forward, that stays and can actually use that towards COLAs or any type of stipends that we want to help with staff. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, I think again, that's important for us to be at those hearings and meetings or whatever else it is, that we get our word out as well, that when they're getting their word out, to make ours as equally as important.
Well, and it'll increase that cap that we can collect with tax credit as well.
Yeah.
50%.
And it's ongoing, so every time, it just goes up with our general fund budget authority. So it continues to help the school district going forward.
And will we have, like in the past, we've done cheat sheets and things like that we've had, that we can help to talk to people, or if we're at those events or?
Yeah, I mean, I
like
made
that.
a flyer last week and took it, I'll forward that along.
Okay, perfect. Great. All right, thanks, Corky. Let's see, no committee reports right now. We'll move on to discussion and action, please.
Make a motion to approve the opening of discussion for the pie auction.
Right,
Hold on, 1 second.
sorry.
I second the motion.
There we go.
Thank you, Matt,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
It has been such a treat to come into this leadership position this year. It is our 45th annual pie auction. And my goal of being at these school board meetings is to be a real bridge between the PTO and you guys. And my hope and my ask today is that you guys can do the same for this pie auction and show up and represent and be a part of this really momentous occasion for our school. We have brought it to the school very intentionally. We are now heroing our classroom art projects as some of the biggest showcase pieces that we have, as well as we have created a cake decorating contest for our student bodies 5th through 12th grade. So they are really sharing the burden of the fundraising. I have some really exciting news as well, that Moonlight Community Foundation has awarded their paddle raise for their spring social this year will be dedicated to COLA. So that is the same weekend as the pie auction. And so between the pie auction, we have 175 silent auction items, really, really top-notch live auction travel items. The old Explorer chairlift is being decommissioned and the resort is giving us one of the chairs. Like, it's really unique, really a special, special night. And I just wanna hold hands and say, we're all in this together. It's not school board over here and PTO over here or Moonlight over there or whatever it is. It's all, like David is saying,
in order for us to grow these future leaders, like we really have to approach this as one team. And so I just ask that if you cannot come, if you will just take one of these and hand it to someone who you think can come. There's a QR code, all the information is on there, and I, as the president of the PTO, would just be so thankful for you all to show up and show your support of this community. That's all. There you go.
Great.
Pass it on.
You could just take
Thanks
one
for
and
the
pass that.
award.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks,
so
Ally.
sorry I have to run. Does anybody have any questions before I leave? No? Okay, awesome.
Thanks, Ally.
Okay.
Do we need to do any vote there or just opening? Okay, great. Move on to the next.
I make a motion to approve the quote as presented for new copiers and printers.
I second the motion.
That's pretty straightforward.
Well, I mean, two are original to this building,
Yeah,
2 have been leased for the last 5 or 6 years, and they're all limping along, so it's an opportunity to get rid of everything and start anew.
I walked in the other morning and the unit was 5 kids deep, trying to get something going, so it makes complete sense. It's time. So, any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, they're good, they're local, they respond really quickly whenever we have
Maintenance.
problems from maintenance.
All right, call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously.
Should I open discussion?
I mean, that's just, that was in there for information, and I realized that she didn't put in there and I didn't put in there. Really, she was like indicating that she would not return for her contract. She came to us, we were trying to figure it out today, I think 19, she's student taught here.
Yeah, it's 5 years.
Yeah, 1920,
Catherine.
she worked in the community and then taught with us for 5 years, so it's from Wisconsin.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and Kate Brunswick was with her, right?
Yeah, we got 2 teachers from some small school in Wisconsin out of that.
St. Robert's or something.
Great, move on to the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously.
And then we have, next regularly scheduled meeting will be the week following spring break, April 15th, but I'm gonna propose that we have a special board meeting, March 21st at 10 a.m. to take up a personnel matter. I'll send out an invite tomorrow. And this is gonna be due to, because I'm trying to figure out some ways that we can do it so it can be electronic and or in person.
And you
And
said
the
10
board
o'clock.
chair has been briefed on the situation.
And you said 10 o'clock.
I do.
That's the 21st.
The week from Friday, Matt. It's a non-school day, non-kid day.
And I'm traveling.
So I'll put it out and see, yes, 10 a.m. would be, appropriate European time.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I cannot, that doesn't. I cannot. I can do 9 a.m. or 11 a.m.
Let's do 9.
Okay, works.
The 21st.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great. Anything else? Meeting adjourned.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.